Hi, everybody. I'm Carolyn Burke from DevaTree and Mystic Moms, and I'm very, very excited to welcome Sheryl Puckering to our show today. I guess it's a show, I've decided. Sheryl is a former educator, and she lives in Brantford. She has 3 children who are all grown. The exciting thing is Sheryl has been running her own children's yoga business for the past several years. So I have her on today to talk to me a little bit about what that's been like, how she's been able to run such a successful children's yoga business. So welcome, Sheryl.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Carolyn.
You're welcome. So tell me a little bit about how you got started.
Okay. So I taught elementary education throughout Ontario and taught for a few years in Calgary. I loved being a teacher. Spent 12 years as a kindergarten teacher and taught up to grade 3. And then I had my daughters, and so I taught half-time when I had my first daughter, and I continued to teach just half-time when I had my second daughter. When I had my third daughter, she's 20 now, I decided I wanted to be home for a little while, really just feeling like, in the best case scenario, when she went to kindergarten, I would go back to kindergarten. And just found I loved being home, but I needed to earn an income. So I started actually a business working with moms, mostly with women, helping them tell their story through their photographs. So I did that for, I guess, maybe that's 13 or 14 years. So I had a little workshop in my basement, and women would gather. I always thought of it kind of like an old-fashioned quilting bee, and moms would come with their photos and their stories, and we would drink coffee and tea and snack and share our stories while we put together albums and created these legacy books for our families. And when my youngest was getting ready to go to university, I was feeling this need to come back to my roots and be back with children. So as my children were, leaving and heading off to their own world, I was really being drawn back to working with children. And I had worked with kids here through my photo business in the summer and had summer camps. So children would come with their photos, and we would make these cute little scrapbook albums. And then as I became more interested in wellness and yoga, my own personal practice, it just kind of all came together that I would expand what I was doing with their photos to create what now is Bhavatree. And so I looked and looked for a long time to find the right yoga teacher training that was going to assist me in bringing this heart work that I felt like growing inside of me, how this was going to come out into the world, and found DevaTree and HeartRise. And that was the beautiful starting point and such a transformational time for me, as I really felt I was just going off to get certified to teach children's yoga. And throughout that time and that training changed, as anyone who's had a yoga teacher training knows, that it's so much more than just a certification to teach yoga. And so that continued to grow my love of children's wellness. I was doing some consulting with school boards through some other programs, Roots of Empathy, and just noticing such huge changes in our children in the classroom from when I started teaching in the late 80s. And really felt that our little ones and not so little ones just need these tools to help them find joy. Again, we all want for our children just to live this joy-filled life. It should be natural. It should just be what they, and it's not what I was seeing in our schools. So Bhavatree was birthed after HeartRise. And again, it was another situation where I needed to replace income. It wasn't, so I needed to just jump in. And I developed the skills, and even through the business work that DevaTree through HeartRise shares with their students, felt like I was ready to go. And I did just jump in, almost immediately. My children were in university, and we needed to have that income to support my husband's income. And so I jumped in 2 feet and haven't really looked back, which is just so wonderful to have this opportunity just to bring everything full circle back to my education and the business training that I received through my other business, and then bringing it together in this beautiful little world that I've created of Bhavatree.
Amazing.
Mm.
And so you have kids come into your space. I know I've always followed what you do, and it's amazing to see the kids not just do yoga, but do all sorts of other components of wellness in your
Right.
space. And then you also go out to schools. Is that how it goes?
So our basement was converted from this little scrapbooking studio that I used to have moms visit in, and we made it into a little children's yoga space. And we have a little room off to the side, which is our little creation area. And then, so I do have studio programs during the day for our preschoolers and for families, and then after school in the evenings here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm in schools, so schools will contract me as a business person to go in and share either yoga, mindfulness, or combining it together into mindful movement programs, or even in the evening in the community and in some schools to do some family wellness. So yeah, Bhavatree is certainly, yoga is a very big component, but I teach children how to feed their bodies well. In the summer for our summer camps, we grow our own food. We visit farms in the community. And we make all of our own food, our own snacks and lunches, so the children learn how to feed not only their body, but their mind and their spirit and all of that to combine that to that so that they feel well.
It's incredible. And I love how you said to me that it's like not just wellness for kids, then that translates to wellness for their families, wellness for their community, wellness for the planet.
That's the idea. So, I mean, Bhava loosely translates to love. And so it's a love for self, a love for the planet, a love for each other. And, when we can share with our kids and help them to develop that mental and that physical focus, they feel good in their bodies, they feel good in their minds. If they're focused and balanced, then everything, I think, is easier for them. Well, not just them, for anyone, right?
Yes.
Anyone who practices mindfulness or yoga will understand that, and for moms too. And so if we're feeling balanced and focused, everything becomes easier. So we can concentrate. So our children then have the skills to concentrate. Their learning improves, their sleeping improves. They're less reactive. I really want for our children to develop this, the tools for self-regulation so that they can make good choices when they're faced with all of this crazy, fast-paced everything in their world, right?
Yeah, it feels like
slow down their little brains, right?
Oh, yeah. And it feels like it's so much doing. And I know in terms of my work with moms, it's like we got to learn to do less and then be present and be more for ourselves and be more for our kids. And it feels like it's the same with the kids, that there's still this pressure and this pace and this activities and so much going on in their worlds.
So much going on. And yeah, our families are moving so quickly that we're not connecting as easily because of that speed. And we want to provide everything for our children. I was there. I used to think, I am just such a master multitasker.
Yeah.
I'm amazing. Like, I would take pride in, man, I can do this and I can do this and I do this. And now when I chat with moms and the families, it's like, let's just bring that back. Like, let's enjoy a moment of doing the dishes and putting our hands in that hot soapy water and feeling grateful, for the opportunity to do that after a meal. And it's hard. I understand when they're thinking we've got homework to do, we've got, but we have to slow our brains down and model for our children that it's okay for us to snuggle at the end of the day and to, read 2 stories at bedtime instead of quickly get through one. I was there. I was that mom, with competitive swimmers and a business. And, I remember what it was like. So I just like to share my experience and just like to share some tools with families, with teachers too. So I do a lot of the work that I do as I'm teaching yoga in school, mindful movement or yoga or mindfulness, is help the teachers to learn strategies so that they can take a breath in between lessons or at the start of a day so that they can truly be present for their students. I mean, our children now just needs a chance to speak and to have someone have time to listen to them. And that's really hard. It's hard in our families. It's hard in society. It's hard in our classrooms for sure.
Wow. It feels really powerful and really important, the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Well, it is my heart work. And Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be challenges like anything that you do. But I had a little fellow come up to me, and I was doing 4 kindergarten classrooms last week, and it's a 40-minute class, and teachers are quickly moving the kids out, and they're taking their shoes off. Next one's coming in, and the little guy came running up to me, and he said, Michelle, and his teacher, said, back in the line. And I said, I think he just wants to say something, and he said, Miss Cheryl, thank you. That was so freshing. So freshing. That's what we want. Our children need things in their life where they feel like that was freshing. I was sit on my mat, and I was, someone gave me permission to breathe.
Yeah.
Showed me how to breathe.
Yeah.
And she had me close my eyes and notice how it felt in my still body, even for a minute of their day. Mm-hmm.
And it seems so simple when you say it, yet, as you said, within the culture of the school, it's like, hurry up, get into line, let's go. It seems so simple to think, well, isn't that what we want, is to be able to sit in stillness and to be able to notice?
Yeah.
Something we can all do, but it's hard because of what we're in.
When I have moms, sometimes will reach out and say, my little guy is really busy, and we're working through a diagnosis of ADHD, and I think he's probably just too busy to come to your program yet, but maybe next year. And I'll say, no, bring them on. It's hard to imagine you can have a group of 11 toddlers laying on a mat with a little eye pillow on their eyes and a stuffy on their belly in Shavasana, and they do it, and they ask for it. Are we having Shavasana tonight? Because they just know. It's like when we take a moment to slow down and learn how it feels in our still bodies. Children crave that. So we just need to be able to provide that for them, right? And then give them permission to do that it's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And to develop those brain skills to take a pause between when something happens, whether it's a crisis or just someone took my Lego piece, or I wanted that last cookie, or whatever it is, that teaching children to pause between that moment and their reaction. And so that's that piece of self-regulation, that if I can pause for a minute, and mindfulness, of course, helps our children to give them, the tools to pause for a minute to make that choice. How am I going to react? And if we all can learn those little skills of self-regulation right from when we're little wee people, how great is that? As we, we talk about those skills in elementary school and high school and post-secondary and through adulthood. Oh,
it's huge, and it isn't so little, right? Oh. It's quite huge to me when you point it out like that it is self-regulation, and as parents we need it too.
Of course,
I need that pause button.
What you're doing through Mystic Moms, I really, when I'm following what you're doing, Carolyn, and even your book reviews, it's all helping our moms to take those moments and to learn those skills. And if we break that down, what I feel like I'm doing is just helping our children to develop those very same skills that we're helping moms. To say it's okay, and to let go of that guilt when it doesn't all work out perfectly, that we can come back to it. We've got another chance. We can breathe through it. Mm-hmm.
And that perfectionism too. Like, I love that you're saying to that mom, bring your son or your daughter who's got all that energy, because we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to have this figured out yet. We're going to all come together and find our way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, sharing mindfulness and yoga and wellness with children can be really cost effective. It doesn't cost anything to sit still and to read a story, to go to the library and find, the right stories to share our messages. And that's such a great way to really promote healthy brain development for our children. And it doesn't have to cost all kinds of money to do that. And we think that it maybe does. We have, as much as adults need to foster stress resilience in our lives, our children need it too. And when we have that buildup of adrenaline, cortisol, all of that's happening when we're under stress as adults, the same thing is happening to our children. But they don't know that I better get out there and go for a run, or I better hop into a bath, and they don't know that they need to do that, right? So they need an outlet just as much as adults, as we as adults need an outlet from that stress in our lives. So helping children build stress resilience is, I think, really important for them to be able to live that life we all want for them.
Absolutely.
Peaceful and loving. And
And so if somebody were starting their own business, is there any recommendations that you would have? Like, it seems like you have your niche figured out right away, that you really wanted to focus on kids and use your skills as an educator, but is there anything that you'd recommend?
I think it's, I think we can get in our head sometimes as business owners, or, for startups, and we want everything to be just perfect. And it's really fun to find your logo and to work on your mission statement. And, to be really honest, it's maybe not something I should recommend. My husband is still waiting for my business plan. He's continually asking me as I come up with more ideas. I know I could do this. And he'll say, and that fits in the business plan, where. I did just jump in. I think we sometimes have to kind of get out of our heads and just be confident in the fact that if this is what your heart is telling you to do. I look back and I think I started with just with an open house. I just, put it out on Instagram. All right, I'm going to do a free yoga class, and we'll make a little smoothie, and that's going to be fun. And then share this with everyone. And I look back at that first class and I think, wow. Wow. Certainly my skills at planning, a class that is really wanting to do what I need to do for that theme has grown tremendously. Of course, I've taught lots, but we all we're not perfectly trained to do a job when we start any job. There's on-the-job learning. And so it was what it was at that time. And could that first initial free class have been better? Maybe, but it did what it needed to do. It was a sounding off board. Families got to meet me. Asking for references or referrals. It's really, when we're starting a new business, a lot of us don't have a lot of funding. It's not like we've got all these investors coming in. I was fortunate that my space was in my home, so I didn't have, to worry about the expense of and certainly have looked at how Bhavatree could grow over the years. And when I look at some space, and for me, I like having people in my home. I like using my home studio. It keeps my costs down, so that allows me to offer scholarships to children because I'm in my home. So if I'm teaching anyway, I can bring in a few families that might not be able to participate in the programs financially if I was in the space always worrying about that. Looking for grants to make your way into schools, and it's really about, I guess it's about developing relationships, and I've been very fortunate to be able to develop some relationships with people in schools and with the families in my community that continue to refer other families here. So I think jump in. Have to just jump in. Yep. Just jump in and don't keep thinking I'm not ready. I've got to read this. I got to do that. You've got your certification.
Go for it.
Just go for it, and then refine things. As you feel you need to. It's not going to be perfect at the beginning. It's not going to be perfect 4 years in. For me, it won't be perfect 5 or 10 years down the road. It'll be what it'll be, continually evolving. So have confidence.
And also because you're following your passion. Like, I love what you said. It was your heart's calling. So then it's your heart work.
It is. And so then people know that, people can feel that. It's the authenticity of just being who you are and bringing what you love, and then continue to learn. I continue training through mindfulschools.org, and I continue always to read because it's my heart work. I want to just continue to absorb and be able to bring the very best that I can to the schools and to the families and the little ones that I'm serving. And that means staying on top of things. So continuing education is another important piece as best you can. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me because sometimes people will say, oh, it's hard to get a kids yoga class going at our studio, or it's hard to, whereas it sounds to me like you opening your doors, everybody's like, Miss Sheryl, we want you to come to school. Miss Sheryl, we want to get into that program. It's perhaps the passion, like following your passion, but also the focus on kids. It seems like have you heard that as well? People saying, I can't get kids to come to the
I
studio
have, yeah, I have heard that. And I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the difference is. I had good connections here with families that I had worked with through my other business. So it was, it was kind of a perfect storm, really.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think also my qualifications as a teacher, that was comfortable for school boards to have me come into the school. I had relationships with principals through other programs and through consulting that I was doing. So that was beneficial for sure.
Yeah.
And then, but my first few classes here, I had some classes where I just had a few children.
Yeah.
But again, I think the benefit was because I was in my own space. I could do every class. Even if there was one family, we were going ahead with it, and I would invite other families to come and join us.
Yeah.
And I would stress about that for a while. I remember thinking like, oh, what if it doesn't fill up? And what if my registrations don't come in? And I'm fortunate that that's not an issue now, that I don't have to worry about that. And it was my husband, kind of my business partner, would say, there's no additional cost for you to, so you don't stress about that. Of course, you want to have full classes because that allows you to expand and continue to grow.
Yeah.
But I think start small. Like even if, as a yoga studio, try to start small and then word of mouth is huge. If you find the right teacher, if you find the right passion, if it's really, truly your heart work, and if we're meeting our children where they're at. I think that schools have had some challenges before by bringing in yoga teachers that perhaps their focus is not children's yoga.
Yes.
Then children get turned off because we can't, I'm not expecting, 5-year-olds to sit on a mat for 40 minutes and go through their vinyasa flow or, we sing and we dance and we move, as and our, the level of it goes up, and then we come back down and we insert little tools here and there. And so once schools are able to see, even offering, I think for children's yoga teachers, offer to go in and work with one class and just share, so that they start to see that this is not adult yoga that we're expecting our 5-year-olds to fall into place with that. And then the kids are finding it refreshing or coming back to their teachers and saying, I feel so good. I feel really calm and able to express those feelings. Then they'll say, come back. Miss Sheryl, come back. We need
exactly.
more of that, right?
So it's the connections, and it's the start where you're at and jump in. And also, it just gives me goosebumps because to me, it's a movement. It's a movement that you're bringing into your community. So there is potential to change the way we do things, and the schools are seeing results, the kids are seeing results, the families are seeing results. So then it starts to snowball from there.
And it's more and more and more and more needed. Our little people, their brains are developing differently because of screen time, and we could talk, that's a whole other program about what's happening to their brains. And if you talk to children about how they're feeling and what's causing them stress, they'll tell you that they just through their responses that they're needing this. I gather a group of tween girls here, and I have a separate class of tween boys. And we have to increase our class time because they need time to talk in a safe environment, just to share with each other, build each other up. I sit back, and they could, share what their challenges are, what their warm fuzzies are, what their cold prickles are. And they just want to gather together and support each other and have that time away from their screens and their phones and be with live human people in a positive way.
Yeah.
And so it's right from our toddlers, right up through adolescence, that they're craving this. So it is a movement for sure, and it's more needed, and I think it's becoming more recognized. Perhaps for some children's yoga teachers, the word yoga in our schools can still be a little challenging. So I work with whoever's, requesting information about my programs. Maybe we don't call it yoga. Maybe we call it mindful movement. Maybe we call it mindfulness. Maybe, but helping schools to understand that your programs can be developed and can really support the strands of the physical education curriculum that they're, and their mental health curriculum that they're, needing to supply for their students, that this can just support that. It's not anything to be afraid of.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And I guess normalizing yoga, really, like if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense, because you're looking at the wellness. That's what you're doing. You're saying, let's just have wellness for all. Let's have mindfulness for all. Let's all be able to pause, to know what's going on. Yeah.
It's a good time for children's yoga teachers. I think it's because it's a good, and sometimes I feel like I wish in a way that Bhavatree wasn't needed as much as it is, really.
I bet.
I do feel like it's kind of sad in a way that we have to be teaching our children these tools because of what's happening in our world, because of how they're growing up in this chaotic, fast pace. Everything is go, 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 go. But it is the reality. So let's provide them with the tools to help them.
Let's support our kids
to be successful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to be happy, just to be well. And
joyful. I would like to take a class with Miss Sheryl. I'm sure everybody else would too after hearing this. I
learned it from the best. I took a class with Miss Carolyn, so got my training from Miss Carolyn.
We loved having you in that course, and it's just really inspiring to see where it's taken you.
Thank you.
And for us, it shows us that following your passion is so key. And look what can happen. Like this growth, and this movement is growing, and other people are doing it and doing it and doing it. So there's going to be change, and there is change, and it's freshing. That's just
it is freshing.
So freshing. Thank you, Miss Sheryl.
Thank you. And
so if people,
everything that you've done in terms of kicking this off for me, because it comes back to DevaTree and to Heart Rise, and so namaste.
Oh, namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. And also, if they would like to know if they're in the Brantford area, they can find you at Bhavatree.
Bhavatree.com, Bhavatree on Instagram and Facebook. So most of the work I do with students, of course, is local here, but love to do work with school boards in outlying areas for professional development for teachers.
Perfect.
So just reach out. That would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom and for your heart and for sharing with the children.
Thank you so much, Carolyn.
You're welcome. Namaste.
Namaste.